Hi there. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another WKS podcast interview. This time I'm with Jack Hinks. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, actually. Yeah. I've been suffering recently with my ears. So, if I don't quite catch what you're saying, then don't worry about it, repeat it or whatever. Right. So, you know, how did you get into music in the first place then, Jack?
So I was always really into music from a young age, and I remember singing a lot, even just in car trips, and my parents would often have music on at home. So I think I was always inclined, and I've always tended to see myself as a fairly creative person. I used to sketch a lot, and I thought that that was where I was gonna make a lot of my I guess a lot of the things that I wanted to say and express myself through, I thought was going to be through sketches and art and stuff. But when I was about, I think I just turned about 13, my parents got me like a cheap secondhand a cheap secondhand electric guitar
Right.
for the summer holidays, and I just sort of got stuck in. Really, I was fairly poor at first, but then I decided to get some lessons, and I really fell in love with it as an instrument and as a practice as well, let alone as a career. Like that sort of just happened naturally.
Right.
As it started taking more and more of my attention, I dropped other things that I was doing at the time, and I thought,
Okay.
no, I'd rather be playing guitar right now, and it just sort of snowballed from there.
Okay. And you're a solo act, is that right?
I am, but I often play with different artists as a sort of backing band for myself, or I play alongside lots of my friends and other people within their bands and projects as well.
Right.
But I write as a solo artist and then sometimes adapt it for a band.
Okay. Brilliant. So quite a bit of collaborating goes on then.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to go to people with an idea and say, "This is the song, but I want to hear what you do with it naturally," because
Right. Right.
oftentimes I'll get stuck in my own head and start worrying about whether what I've written is right or good enough or whatever, and then it usually just takes someone else's perspective to knock me out of that and go, "Oh, wait, this would sound great. I hadn't thought
Yeah.
of that. Great, let's just do it."
Superb. Superb. So your sort of songwriting process then is it a fairly sort of easy thing for you, or is it quite arduous? You've really got to work at it.
I think it depends. Usually I find it I find it difficult when I don't have anything particular to say. I can't force it out. But when it comes all at once and usually quite by surprise, often at a bad time because like emotionally or when I'm not able to sit down and write, I have 10 minutes to eat dinner and get out the door before a gig and I go, "Ooh, that's a cool idea." And it's like, "Not now, Jack. Not now. You've got other things you need to do." But but yeah, usually it comes when it wants to come. And
Right.
um I
Does it
find that sorry.
does it tend to be lyrics first then?
It's sort of changed as I've gone on through the years with writing. I find the music side of things and the guitar, because I usually write everything on guitar. That tends to come a lot easier than melding the lyrics together. I used to always sit down and try and write lyrics while I was playing through some ideas on the guitar, and that was how a lot of my first songs came to be. But as time's gone on, I think I've sort of separated the two a little bit, where
Okay.
I can sit down and feel like I want to write about something. This is what I have in mind, and I've over the years I've done a lot of performing and collaborating with poets. So I've sort of tried to get a bit braver with my writing in a sense, where I can try and write it in a way where I try and look at it as if there is no music yet, and I
Okay.
want to write something that could stand on its own without musical backing, and then try and marry the two together. But
Right.
knowing me, it's usually quite hard to get to that stage of committing some lyrics to a piece of music that I've written, because by that time I've usually gone, oh, here's another idea, and I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to start writing, and I have 1,000,001 unfinished things. But when I do finally put them together, it does seem to sort of work, but I think it chooses its moments to be helpful.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. So where are you based then, Jack?
So I'm based in Edinburgh in Scotland.
Right. Okay. So lockdown wise then, and your music, you know, it's a strange question. I'd like to say, how did it affect you? Because obviously, you know, everybody was in lockdown, but you know, did you find yourself lyrically more productive or not?
It's difficult because I try and sit down and write at times, but often when I plan to write, it doesn't work. And for a time, there was definitely a decent amount to be said, but I think the longer it went on, as lockdown in general, it felt like the less I had to say, or everything that I had said, I'd processed it and put it down on a page, and I thought, well, everything else feels sort of in stasis. So I guess I am too. And it felt quite difficult to get that feedback loop that I'm being productive or that I'm still
Right.
writing and that I feel it's weird. It's weird. For a while, I almost forgot that I was a musician because it felt like I wasn't playing anything live. I wasn't doing much writing because I was effectively in limbo, as was everyone. And I think it became a time to play around with ideas that I'd already written, but I wanted to focus on, I guess, the more mechanical side of things because
Right.
there wasn't much new happening in and around me. So I decided I wanted to work on stuff that I guess I'd already put the creative legwork in, and I could go, right, well, I'm going to learn how to record these songs and release them from home and try and focus on what I can do for other instruments and arrangements instead of
Right.
writing purely new stuff only with me and a guitar. And
Right.
I think that
Yeah.
really saved me at a point. But it was
Okay.
it's interesting. I definitely wrote a couple of things towards the start of lockdown, but it wasn't necessarily lockdown inspired. Usually, when I write things down or I have some lyrics, like even if they're finished, I'll come back to them in 3 months and I go, oh yeah, I wrote this. That could work with this idea that I've just been playing around with. Cool, I'll try and put that together.
Okay. So
So
if you
a lot
got
of the things that I did write
right, so
weren't
you
necessarily new.
yeah.
Sorry.
So have you got your own sort of recording area there in the house? Have you?
I do, yeah. It's been a while, like a fair amount of time to like build it up to something
Yeah.
that I'd consider a home studio. But
Okay.
yeah, it's been really fun and interesting trying to delve more into the engineering side of things throughout lockdown because studios were indefinitely closed for the longest time, and without any live gigs, it's hard to get any guaranteed money in to pay for studio time. So I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
why not see what I can do with what I have already?
Okay. So um, what is out there from you then at the moment? You know,
So
and where can people get it?
currently, I'm working through a concept that I came up with about maybe a couple of years ago. It's the idea of a concept album based around the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, being traditional, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. I thought that a lot of being a traditionally like sad singer songwriter, um, most of my songs that I write tend to be about some form of heartbreak or personal experience. Um, and I thought I haven't really looked any deeper than that with a lot of songs that I've written. I've just gone, oh, grief or loss. But I thought, what if I pick that apart, I guess, and try and write a song depicting each stage of grief? Because that might give me a little bit more direction or depth towards something that I haven't written about yet, because usually I focus on the loss or, oh, this is a sad thing, as opposed to what if you were angry about it or what if you didn't even see it coming.
Right.
So I decided I wanted to write this as a as a concept EP or an album. So there's the 5 main songs, one of which I was working on today because I've released 4 of them now. And once that's done, I want to try and tie it all together as an album and release that. So 4 of the tracks are out already. The 5th one, all being well, will be out in November because the first track was released last November, and I've been doing it periodically, a release every 3 months. So hopefully the final piece will come out the day before the anniversary of the first one.
Okay.
So it'll connect as like a year of grief or something, I guess.
Okay. So where can we get hold of it then, or where can we listen?
You can find everything on all the standard streaming spots, where Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, Bandcamp as well. I've got a Bandcamp if you feel generous and want to get any of the tracks there, or my back catalog as well, because I've been releasing singles for about, I think the first one I released was 2012, but recently more of the more recent singles that I've been releasing have been since about 2018. So there's a couple of tracks before this as a concept album already, but I wanted to also make each of the tracks in this upcoming album feel like they could stand alone instead of, they're, I guess, unlistenable without context.
Right.
So hopefully they still track just as singles, but my hope is to tie it all together, and maybe put a couple of like Pink Floyd-y style tracks in between songs to really tie it together and make it more conceptual, I guess.
Okay. And this is you as a solo artist, this album?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's stuff that I've all written, but I do 2 of the tracks were recorded pre-pandemic and released as the pandemic went through, and the rest of it I've been writing and doing at home. So I've been recording remotely with some of my friends and people that were in the band that I assembled for the first 2 singles that we recorded in a studio. But it's been really fun to play around with this like first experience for me of not necessarily having to do everything live. Because usually when we go into the studio, I want to do it as live a take as I can and go, this could be recreated part for part at a gig. But being able to layer things up and really experiment with instruments that I necessarily don't even play, so I could always do another pass until it sounds okay. It's been really fun trying to take a different approach to it, I guess.
Yeah, fantastic. So what's next then? Where are you going? So I know you've said about you've got this final track to do for the album, but what's going to happen then, Jack? Are you hoping to get gigging again, or?
I'd really like to, yeah. I think I've been back gigging for a little bit since things had opened up, because I'm also in a wedding band and that's my main bread and butter. So it's been nice to really get performing again and feel like I've blown some of the cobwebs off. But I'd really like to get my my band back together to be able to do some live shows or even just acoustic solo stuff. I think once this album's done and ready, I'd really like to take it out as a show, I guess, and have it as one continuous performance instead of singles spotted here and there. So that's the hope, but I haven't got anything planned up just yet, because I think if anything the last year or 2 years has taught me is it feels almost impossible to plan anymore and know if it's gonna happen or not, because all it takes is one Rai News article and everything's closed again.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. What who are your sort of famous artists do you admire then?
So I've got a great love for David Byrne and Talking Heads. I was raised on a lot of Talking Heads, and I love John Mayer. I think he's an amazing guitarist and singer, but also just songwriter. He seems like this illustrious whole package of a musician that I would love to aspire to be like. And Phoebe Bridgers as well. I think she's a really, really nice addition to the sort of singer-songwriter style mold, but it's very, despite her being like really big right now, it's still really intimate and honest and quite like a lot of the songs feel quite that you can just see the amount of pain sewn into it.
Right.
And everything as well, I think, are really quite challenging as musicians as well. It's like you listen to it and it feels like such an oblique approach to writing, where it sounds almost like, lyrically at least, a little bit alarming. You go, hang on, did they just rhyme that with that, or like, what's this song actually about? But I feel like there's always a lot of interesting things that they're writing about, and the way that they do it is so cool. And I like that it's different. So definitely a huge fan of that band.
Superb. So if you think back to when you sort of started, you know, on the musical journey, can you remember any sort of like the top bit of advice that somebody gave you?
I think, I can't remember who said it. I think someone over the years, a lot of people have said to not try and dilute what my sound is, or like to not write something for someone else, and remember that it's still your music. So that's kind of what I tend to remember when I'm not sure if a song of mine is going exactly the way I want it to be, or if I think, oh, this bit might be better like this. It's like, what do I want it?
So staying true to yourself, really, then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, look, final question. I ask this every band and artist I interview. Is there anybody you'd like to thank now, you know, for you being here musically?
I think my parents have both been ridiculously supportive of me going into music as a career, because it's definitely not the most applicable or reliable from the outset. So to be able to support me and go, yeah, do it anyway, it'll be fine and you'll find something that works, is a huge amount of support that I really appreciate. But also Jim Duncan, who first taught me guitar, and I think a lot of songwriting skills as well. So a huge thank you to him for essentially putting me where I am now.
Brilliant. Jack, look, thanks for the time. I know it's taken us a little bit of effort and everything to get this one together, but
yeah,
it's
apologies.
Well
the
worth
last
it.
couple of weeks have been rather COVID ridden.
Yeah, no worries, but it's brilliant interview. Brilliant.
Thank you. Lovely to talk to you.
Good luck with everything. You know, hopefully live music, albums out there, and brilliant. Absolutely superb. All right, take care of yourself, mate.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers.
Thanks. All the best, man.